Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.
Hello, this is episode 199, and we are with Wil and the Professor as they suffer through more shit, which is kind of what they do every week, really, innit? And then sort of do something about it. So it's pretty good. Go down to the description if you want. There's a fantastic bunch of lunatics in the Facebook group. You can find more lunatics with us on X and Instagram and all those kind of things. There are some excellent books in the description from both Greg and Fen. So yeah, go down there and do stuff. If you wouldn't mind, if you could rate us on Spotify or even give us a little comment, that would be wonderful and would help the podcast a lot. And yeah, so that'd be wonderful because you are wonderful and we all wonder at how you listen to this. What? Oh, yeah, anyway. Love you, bye!
The Professor. I sit once more in my library, in the manor. My old mahogany desk is cluttered with books, half-burnt candles, and a half-empty glass of whiskey. I sit before a piece of paper and start writing all I know about this Foxglove. I like this methodology. Put everything you know on a bit of paper and then draw the links between them. I wouldn't be surprised if there's not some sort of software for this these days, but as you know, I like the old ways of dealing with this old world. I write what I know of her. Not a lot, really. 2 bloody sentences. Then, chewing slightly on my pencil, a bad habit, I'll vouch, I think about who I should talk to and what the issues with her are. Ugh, I should have put that bloody thing off the hook as well. I set down my somewhat chewed pencil and reach for the receiver. Yes! I say with a little more vehemence than was absolutely necessary. Professor de Montfort, this is Inspector Gabriel Cardenas of the Paranormal Police Department in Merida, Mexico. I need your expertise. The voice on the other end was clipped, tense, and urgent. I smiled in response. I had an idea of what he was going to say. The last time I'd helped out on the Yucatan Peninsula was in 1894. I've rather fond memories of that case. Particularly of her. Of course, Inspector. What seems to be the issue? There's been an attack here. 3 men are dead. I smiled. I knew exactly where this conversation was going. Their bodies were found near the same ceiba tree outside the city. They all died the same way. Faces twisted in terror. Bodies showing no signs of a struggle, yet completely drained of life. I have to admit, I had a little laugh as I listened. I could sense the confusion over the line. I mean, I really shouldn't be laughing, should I? I mean, men had died. And witnesses, anything unusual? I asked. A few locals claim to have seen a woman in white. Beautiful beyond belief. They say she lured the men into the jungle and they never came back. Classic Xtabay behavior. I allowed myself another slight smirk at this. Ah, so she's at work again, hmm? The other end of the line went quiet as the inspector tried to wrap his head around what I was saying. Should I not be concerned? Well, I didn't sound concerned. Well, actually, to be honest, I really wasn't concerned.
You sound unbothered, Professor,
the inspector replied, sounding almost offended.
This is a dangerous situation. We need to know how to stop her. You can help, yes?
Well, that depends, I said as I filled my glass and swirled my whiskey idly.
Tell me, these men who died, who were they?
I took a sip.
Just real local men. You need their names?
He asked.
Okay, let me reword that. What type of men were they?
Cardenas hesitated, then sighed.
Okay.
Papers rustled on the other end of the line, and I smiled to myself. Paper records. How lovely.
One was an abusive father and a heavy drinker. He squandered his money on mythical while his family starved.
He paused, shuffling.
The second was a big-time gambler with debts all over the town. And the third? A notorious womanizer. He had a history of domestic violence, left a trail of broken homes behind him.
His voice trailed off as he realized these men were, not good men.
Okay.
He finished. Ha! I barked out a laugh, leaning back in my chair.
Indeed. I see. And you're calling me because... Because 3 people are dead,
Cardenas said with an almost apologetic air.
And if we don't act, there will be more.
Yes. Yes, I dare say, I said, amused.
But let's be honest, Inspector. Does it sound like she's killing at random to you?
Silence. A long pause. Then finally the inspector exhaled sharply.
She... No. Well, exactly. The Xtabay isn't a mindless killer. She punishes men who abuse, exploit, and degrade women. These weren't innocent men. They were marked by their own actions. So unless you're worried about being next, I'd just leave her to it if I were you.
Silence on the line. Eventually, Cardenas grumbled something under his breath.
I still have to file a report.
Then write the truth, I suggested, finishing my whiskey.
You have my backing. The higher-ups should really not mind her work. I'm sure it's something that these men deserve. If you can call them men at all. And if you're feeling particularly responsible, just set up a fund for the families left behind. I'll even send you some money to help out.
I continued. Another moment of silence as I could hear him thinking.
I'm afraid, Professor, that is more than our government will do.
Cardenas admitted.
Well then, perhaps it's time to reconsider who the real monsters are.
I told him. Silence again.
Are you still there, Cardenas?
I asked the handset.
Si. Yes, okay. Gracias. Thank you, Simon.
Eventually came.
Well, I hope Olivia and the boys are well.
I said. Again, a period of silence. I could tell the man was thinking about what to do as a result of this conversation, how to take things forward.
Cardenas?
I asked.
Si. Alejandro is doing well at school and Maria is the local football team captain.
He told me stiltedly, his mind on other things.
I will have to go, Simon. Thank you for your time, as always. No problem. Always happy to help.
I realized I really hadn't, and with that, I hung up the phone, poured another drink, and raised my glass towards the shadows where I imagined the Xtabay might be listening to me.
You carry on, love.
I muttered.
Seems like you're doing just fine without me.
I said, taking a deep, deep drink. After the toast, I turned back to the desk and the piece of paper. Suddenly remembering the phone, I reached down to the wall socket, and I ripped it out.
Right, Foxglove. Let's see what you've been up to, eh?
I said to myself. Suddenly, Vaunt was in front of me, her cat-like eyes filled with concern. The door was open, and she was just standing there. How did she do that? She just appeared. I was going to chastise her for not knocking, but that face stopped me. Using standard form BSL sign language, she signed for me the word visitors.
Oh, okay. Send them in, I suppose.
She shook her head and silently sighed, rolling her eyes dramatically. Unwanted was the next word she signed, her body language with an exclamation mark linked to it. I smiled in response to this and downed my drink.
Well, I need to stretch my legs. Let's go and welcome them, whoever they are.
I told her. She gave a deep smile and wiggled happily at the thought of what could happen. I opened my top drawer and took out my thrice-blessed Browning High Power with its silver hollow points and protective charms. It had stopping power for the fey folk of a 50 cal. I mean, it wouldn't only kill fey, it would kill almost anything. I smiled as I hefted its weight and put one in the chamber, just in case. Vaunt had transformed into her human cat form when I wasn't paying attention. The werecat now stood before me, black-pelted and oozing danger. "Mwahoo," she said, and then just disappeared. I laughed to myself and made my way to the door, only stopping to take my arming sword from the umbrella stand. I stood there for a moment, looking at it, and then at the gun. Again I chuckled as I placed the pistol on the dresser and swiped the sword back and forth a couple of times, as I have myriad times before.
Well then,
I said to myself,
let's be having you. Tally-ho!
But now when he's about, he warns you, as you might say, with his tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock.
Will I awake? Wow, that sounded properly dramatic, didn't it? I awake. I am, I'm being subjected to some sort of torture by sound. I keep my eyes closed and let my mind wander to the back of Fen's mind to see the world through his eyes and see where the fuck he is. Hopefully he's close to me so I can see what there is to see. He says nothing at my move into his head. I know he knows that I'm there, but there is obviously some reason why he's not communicating with me. We know each other so well that I can make the guess that someone can listen into our mental conversation or something. That is why he's ignoring me. He's laid next to a large steel-built chair. It holds someone or something very tightly within it. I go back to my body for a moment, just to sense if anything is constricting me. Oh yeah, that's probably me in that chair, yep, definitely. Flashing back into the wolf's soul's head, I slowly start to use his eyes with his head to look around the area. We're in it's like a vast warehouse, and at one end of it is a giant cinema screen that is high up on a wall. It's playing some sort of cartoon. It's a Disney cartoon. It's fucking Peter Pan. I know, I'm an horrible beast, so why would I know anything about Peter Pan? But anyone alive on this planet, especially in the Western Hemisphere, has been brainwashed by Disney, have they not? I'd like to sound, a high sort of faluting and say that I recognise the content of the cartoon from the book written by Barry, although that would also mean that I read children's books, or I've read children's books as an adult. Maybe, if I'd read Peter Pan as a child, I would have an excuse, but that's not the truth. I was almost middle-aged when I read Peter Pan and Harry Potter, and I don't give a shit. If that's a bad thing for an adult to do, it's what it is. I really enjoyed them. I was obviously, rooting for Voldy and Hook. I think they got a bad rep in the end. Voldy especially, he was just looking after the magical creatures, like us bloody werewolves. I lift Fen's head, not physically, inside his head. I lift his head with my thoughts and look left and right to get some idea of what the fuck is going on in here. There are hundreds, if not possibly more, perhaps thousands of wooden chairs in this room, each with a child strapped into them. I look at the kid next to me. He must be about young. I have no idea. I don't really understand the concept of age and children. I have nothing to do with him, really. Well, not beyond the small snack every now and again, but I can tell he's young because he's small with dribbly nostrils. Yeah, that means young, doesn't it? He has a cloud of unkempt red hair. His eyes are rheumy as he stares at the screen. His mouth is constantly working and he's saying something as he sits there. I can't quite make it out, but I sense it in the cacophony that whatever it is being said by many, many voices. His head is held in some sort of like metal, solidy, devicey sort of thing, so it can't really be moved from looking at the cinema screen. It's being held pretty tight. The chair is quite high off the ground, and beneath it is a wooden buckety type thing. I look at the bucket, oh fuck, and I'm instantly repulsed as I see it's full of shit. I take Fen's head away from this because it's pretty horrible, and I noticed that the child's bottom half is naked. He just defecates and wheezes into the bucket when he needs to. Yummy. Around his body is a web of leather straps that tie him tight. They seem to be very adjustable, but the boy cannot move in the slightest. I stand as the wolf's soul, and move to try and look in front of him to see and have a nosy, but I'm physically stopped as I meet some barrier of some kind. We, Fen and I, are actually in what looks like a giant soap bubble-like thing. It has a thin film-like thing in the air, and it coruscates and moves as colours shift over it, like the light over a starling wing, or more accurately, oil spilt over the surface of a puddle. Ah, great. Magic barriers again. I fucking hate these things. It must be. I look down at the ground from where the bubble extends to make sure it's magic. Yep, I see the evidence of the magic being used. The chair I sit in is at the centre of one of those pentagrammy things, starry things. I shake my head. Shit, well, I suppose this is for future Fen and Wil to worry about. I go back to looking at the young lad. His body is covered in sores, and I realise these are compression sores where the straps and items of the chair have touched his skin for a significant length of time. Poor little bastard. Poor little bastard? Poor little... What the fuck is going on in my head? I am totally fucking sick of this shitty empathy thing. Fuck him. Let him die. Who cares? Well, for some reason I do. I hate this fucking guilt-led emotional shit. Okay. Let's ignore that. Let's get more detail of what the fuck is happening in this place. Try to forget that I care a bit now. I noticed that below the cinema screen there are two black-robed figures wafting their arms around like conductors at a weird concert. Maybe they are directing the trapped victims in the words that they are saying. Who knows? Oh, right, yeah, well, flashing above the cinema screen on the wall is a sentence. We believe in fairies. It flashes at random in a violent green. The two cloaked figures are hidden in voluminous cloaks that encase them. Normally I could smell if they were human or not, but knowing that, what sits, those shits that sit below these children's chairs, I'm kind of glad that the barrier doesn't allow any smells to cross it. It would be a fucking pungent hell. The hands that the cowled creatures wave in that sort of weird, monotonous manner are pale and wraith-like. That means very little to me, though. If I had a deep supernatural knowledge, I would probably recognise what the cloaked things were. I just knew that they were stirring up some magic and bollocks. As I look around, I notice a small, green-skinned creature walking down the gap between my row of seats and the row before us. He is pushing a little cart with an old steel oil drum on top of it. He's mumbling his misery as he walks. You can tell he's miserable. God, he's fucking ugly. Green skin and gangly. His clothes are sort of hanging off him. I really have no idea what he is, but his red eyes never leave the little wooden rickety cart with the drum on it. The drum is taller than he is. He must be, about 3 feet high, about a metre. As the oil drum gets closer, I notice that a bright light shines from the top of it and smoke pours from it like some bad mid-80s, movie special effect. At each seat he passes, he pulls the bucket briefly from under the seat's owner and looks into it. He sniffs each, and his face sometimes wrinkles into disgust, and, well, he's got a fucking disgustingly shaped face anyway, so you can imagine.
You got shitty, poor cops, have you clean up shitty human cops?
He mutters.
Taking fairies.
Is all I recognise of the next sentence as it breaks into unintelligible mutters. He pulls the bucket from under the seat of the kid in the row before me. I could tell by its weight that it is obviously very full. I can hear it dangerously slop as it moves. He looks in and sighs. He steels himself for a moment before he peers in, closing one eye as he does so. Maybe he's trying to half protect himself from what he sees.
Shitty, piss shitty,
he says quietly and bitterly. The barrel on the little truck is a little taller than him, as I said, so he has to carefully hoist the slopping bucket to a shoulder before getting it to the edge of the barrel. He does seem to wear quite a bit of it. At its edge, he waits for a second to gather himself, and he rests it there for a moment while adjusting his rotting garments, pulling down what once was some kind of, linen shirt or something, to cover the bits that had been on general display now.
Fucking nasty fucking kitty. Nasty, horrid nasty.
He wipes his nose with the back of one overly long-fingered hand and reaches to carefully tip the contents of the bucket into the barrel. Once emptied, he slowly and carefully lowers the bucket, which he then looks into to carefully consider its remaining contents.
Fucking focus, sticky, shitty, sticky, hate flipping for shitty kitty fuckers.
He doesn't seem very happy at revealing its remaining contents, and he has a very controlled tantrum, an impressively self-contained tantrum. He obviously does not want to show his emotional state to too many people or things, or He wanders round to the front of the crumbling, wooden-wheeled, creaky cart, mumbling. He swears bitterly as he lifts a horribly stained cloth that covers a compartment at the front of the little truck. I can tell it used to be like a cotton sort of material, but it's become solid over the edges with whatever it is that it's covered in now. It's more of a flap than it was a cloth, to be honest. Reaching into the space, he removes a large ladle. This is weirdly out of place in this setting, as it's one of those sort of greeny, sort of fluorescent-y ones that you get in modern kitchens. It seems so odd in the context of this creature and where we are. He lifts it and sets it on his shoulder as though it's some kind of weapon of war. He's very proud of his ladle, and I can see that. Bimbling back to the pot, he carefully scrapes the ladle around the inside of the bucket, getting any of the remnants of the dark materials that are in there. This takes a lot of focus from the creature, and he lets his tongue come to the corner of his mouth and hang loose in concentration as he does so. Once happy with his haul from literally scraping the bottom of the bucket, he carefully takes the ladle back to the barrel and puts its heaped contents into the bright light emanating from the top. As he leans forward, he slips gently, and his empty hand touches the surface of the barrel as he tries to catch himself. He yelps in pain, and shaking it brings it back to his mouth and gives it a suck as he kicks the cart so hard that it moves a little. Kicking the cart elicits a new pain response as he now holds his toes and hops around on one foot. I laugh literally out loud at this. Well, I catch ourselves and hope that he didn't hear us.
Hey, you fucker! Fake the fucking truck! Fucking far! Fucking truck!
He says at the cat as though he's scolding it for what it has done to him. Perhaps he is, who knows? The cat might be, I don't know, sentient. Who the fuck ends? Anyway, why am I going into so much detail about this character? Well, to be honest, I'm fascinated by him at this moment, and he may become, some great part of a wider story arc that we have to create. Or he may just be killed in the next moment, who knows? But do you know what? It's called character building, and this is like one heck of a little character. Well, he is, isn't he? Finally, he casts the ladle back into the space in the cart and closes the curtain flap. He then looks at the barrel with something like hate before getting a piece of cloth and touching some kind of symbol scrawled on the side of the drum with his cloth-protected hand. What is he? I wonder. A goblin, maybe? A gremlin? Nah, it can't be a gremlin, can he? Because gremlins fuck things up, don't they? The light goes out and the barrel that he's touching. The noise of an old-fashioned chain-pulled toilet can be heard as the barrel is flushed? I don't know. It rattles on the truck. Then after a few moments, the sound goes and the light returns. I think that's something magical or something, I guess. See, I recognise magical things too. It's fucking easy. Having been a little distracted by the little whatever it is, I get back into greater consideration of my surroundings, but then my attention goes back to the little creature as its rumbling volume increases. I take my eyes back to it and I see it dunking what seems like a small mop into another little bucket on the cart that I hadn't noticed. Yep, he's definitely dunking it and rinsing it out. It has to be a he, doesn't it? Even nature would not be that unkind to make this thing a she. Then he takes that now emptied shit bucket and a little mop back to the seat he'd just taken said shit bucket from. What was he going to do with the mop? Oh, fuck no. No, please, no. He does not need to bend to look at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom in the bottom of the seat. It's more or less at eye level, and he places the bucket back and looks up at the and with a look of disgust, he gets the little mop and uses it to, yeah, you can imagine. But actually, maybe you shouldn't imagine I don't know, I'm not sure are the laws against imagining child's bottoms. I'm not sure. Let's just not imagine it, just in case. I have not been concentrating and now realise that I am now behind my own eyes in my own head, no longer in the wolf, which are open. and I'd not noticed this transfer of consciousness. Shit. My head is not fixed solid like the other esteemed members of the Tied in the Seats gang, so I turned my head to look at the little green thing as it worked, again unnoticed to me. I was slightly impressed that the thing had, the decency to turn his head away from what he was doing while he was mopping. He had lifted the mop and cleaned with his eyes closed while facing his head away from the job. Yeah, the job he was doing. As he did this, his mini mopping, he cringed and stuck out his tongue.
Look, it's very lucky.
It said. I smiled, but the thing had stopped its cleaning and was standing stiff like a statue. Its little red eyes with the cat-like irises were locked on my own. Its face was frozen, and then as I looked, a huge, pointy-toothed grin spread across as it giggled. I could see the malice in its eyes.
Awakey then there.
It said smugly, dropping its little mop to the floor and bringing its hands to its hips while trying to stick out its pigeon chest for some reason. I noticed at this point that what he wore was actually some sort of shit uniform. Only when he turned towards me could I see that he had a huge shiny gold star on the front of it. It was the only thing that was buffed and clean on the whole creature. He was showing it off. He was proud of it. In little letters, it had the word sheriff written on it. I laughed at the primping nature of the little beast. I couldn't help it. Did you get the star for being the best shit cleaner upperer? I asked him. The little thing considered this. I don't think it realised I was being sarky. It took some time to do, and I could see by his body language that he had to think deeply. Just a little bit thick then. When he thought about it, he stood to attention once more, doing some kind of weird salute and nodded proudly, and then pointed to his little shiny star.
Best of shit stirrer.
It said. I laughed. It's... I know I shouldn't have done, but I laughed. It was just so comical, and its little head fell, and it looked really disappointed at my reaction. Again, I felt guilty. What the fuck is this feeling guilty for? I shouldn't be fucking feeling guilty about this green piece of snot. Eventually, after some snivelling, the goblin, gremlin, whatever it was, snapped back to attention and looked at me in such a maliciously evil way that it made me reel a little bit in my seat. Oof.
Oopsie. Bullshit. You wolfy man in deep shit. Up to neck. Maybe deeper.
It said happily.
You see, you mock Gupsy, would you? You drown him, boo! Ha! You drown him, boo! Ha!
It said, and smirked as it turned its head down the aisle.
Miss Foxglove! Miss Foxglove!
It yelled in a crackly little voice as it turned and ran down the aisle, using its long, gangly arms and legs, a little bit like a chimpanzee or a gorilla. Miss Foxglove? Oh, for fuck's sake. Foxglove. Of course.
Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.